Okay, so there is a lot of AI news, but one of the first stories that completely missed me was LG's new AI model. That's right, LG produced a model. Now, I'm not just covering this because LG produced an AI model, but if you actually take a look at what the model was able to do, it was so surprising. The model was 32 billion parameters and actually performed number one on the math benchmark. I think that is something that is absolutely outstanding. And I actually found this out because I was looking at an interview with Sam Altman where they were discussing the fact that there are so many new AI models, and this was potentially one of those new models. Now, let's take a look at these benchmarks because they were not messing around. You can see that the new AI model from LG, the 32 billion parameter model. Now, I haven't tested it yet, but take a look at these crazy benchmarks. We can see that it's got 32 billion parameters. We can see that there's also a version with 7.8 and a version with 2.5. And overall, we can see that all versions seem to perform very well for the comparative size. Comparing it to DeepSeek R1, which is completely incredible, we can see that it manages to do very well on the math benchmark, on the AMI benchmark, on the CSAT benchmark. I do hope that this model isn't just purely trained on benchmarks. I haven't really been able to see any inference provider who's been able to provide inference for this model, but taking a look at what I can see here, this is some seriously impressive stuff. 32 billion parameters, and it's performing better than these models. This is something out of, I don't even know what it's out of, but this was something that was really, really surprising. Now, the honest truth is that the AI models are getting more and more impressive every single week. We actually had DeepSeek, guys. DeepSeek is what we had. Can you believe we had DeepSeek V3, and DeepSeek V3 was remarkably impressive. This is a model that seriously took me by surprise because not only did I not expect them to release an update, I didn't expect them to release an update that was so much better in terms of the performance that it would leave the AI industry wondering what they are going to release next. When we actually really take a look at what was released here, we can see that the model managed to perform better than these other ones. Now, I don't really want to hamper on about benchmark this and benchmark that, but one of the most incredible things that I think about is that I'm not sure what techniques they used. I'm not sure, maybe it was the post-training or the fine-tuning, whatever it is that they managed to do to the model. Of course, they didn't completely train a new model, but what I did see from them was I did see the fact that they did manage to become the top reasoning model. Now, when we take a look at this, like this was something that truly did surprise me. I do apologize for the quality of this, but I'll explain it to you so you don't have to pay attention. The Artificial Analysis Index by OpenWeights showed that DeepSeek V3 basically jumped to the #1 spot in terms of non-reasoning models. And so it becoming one of the best models that is not only, open source, but just simply crushing it in terms of the benchmarks, I think it's a remarkable level of ability that they've managed to achieve in such a short amount of time. And this was something that truly did shock me because never did I ever think that an open weights model would jump to that spot. Now, it wasn't the only model that was released. Honestly, this week of AI was absolutely incredible. And I think you guys are going to understand why many individuals were essentially saying that the models have somewhat become commoditized in the sense that we now have too many models to choose from, that it is no longer a selling point to have your model be on the level of GPT-4 because we've got too many models that are at that level. I mean, let's just take a look. We've got DeepSeek V3, we've got Grok V3, we've got GPT 4.5, we've got Gemini 2, Claude Sonnet 3.7, Qwen 2.5 Max, Llama 3. I mean, the list continues to go on. And when we look at this, guys, you guys might be even getting bored at this point. We've got Hunyan T1 model, okay? And this is another model that was released. And so Hunyan T1 is Tencent's advanced large language model that combines Mamba, Transformer, and mixture of experts to deliver exceptional performance among many different areas. Now, what's crazy about this is, once again, I think I'm getting benchmark fatigue because, Hunyan T1 actually performed better than DeepSeek's R1 in certain areas. You see on the MMLU Pro, in the reasoning areas, in the math areas, in the code areas, on the Chinese areas. I mean, honestly, it's getting to a point now where I'm starting to think that maybe there are too many AI models. Now, of course, for the consumer, I think that this is a good thing because, you have tons of models to choose from. If, one service provider is down, you can always go off to another. So, this is something that is definitely good for the consumer because we are pretty much spoilt for choice at this moment in time. Now, whether or not people will actually use the model, that is going to be a different question because one of the things I will say to you guys, and one of the reasons I will always advocate for at least testing the model, is because you never truly know whether or not a model is good for your use case unless you've vibe tested the model. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, take Hunyan T1 as an example. And I do apologize if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but just focus on the message here. The point I'm trying to make is that you need to focus on the vibe. So, whatever it is that you specialize in, maybe you specialize in marketing, maybe you specialize in designing stuff, maybe you specialize in writing certain emails, you need to, have a set number of prompts and then test the model on those prompts to see if it can just naturally understand where you're going on. Because one thing that I don't think people don't realize is that every single model is trained on a specific data set, and those data sets shape the worldview and the responses of said model. And sometimes you get really lucky and it's shaped in a way that is for your domain. And other times you get a little bit unlucky and it just really doesn't understand anything you're talking about. And this is something that, I have with image generator models. Sometimes I want them to do a specific game or a specific concept that only a few may understand. And I think it's always important just to quickly test these models on a few prompts. That way you can never miss out if a model is released, and it might just be part of your daily workflow. And this is actually why I use several different models in my daily workflows, and I'm not dismissive of these new models. Now, this is probably the last one I'm going to announce, but once again, Baidu just unveiled Ernie 4.5 and X1. Last week, they released two models. So they released the base model, Ernie 4.5, and I do think that that wasn't like a hint to GPT 4.5, but I do think it was a little bit cheeky for them to name their model Ernie 4.5 and, X1, because OpenAI, they've named theirs GPT 4.5 and X1. And you can see right here, it says, as a deep thinking model with multimodal capabilities, Ernie X1 delivers performance on par with DeepSeek R1 at only half the price. Meanwhile, Ernie 4.5 is our latest foundation model, a new generative native multimodal model. And so they made this chatbot, free. And of course, this is the benchmarks. You can see it does perform better than GPT-4o. Of course, I will say at the time of this, OpenAI does continue to rapidly update their GPT-4o model. They do make small changes on the end. So I do think that potentially, even though when these models are released, they might be initially better than GPT-4o, but over time, as those updates get passed on, I do think that OpenAI probably will always retain that leadership because they always make small changes that just make the model a lot better. We can see here that multiple articles said that Ernie X1 delivers performance on par with DeepSeek R1 at only half the price. You can see here that this was one of the screenshots I saw floating around on Twitter. It was talking about how, GPT 4.5, and I don't know why they compared GPT 4.5. I do think that this was just a bit disingenuous because GPT-5 is not deliberately an expensive model, but OpenAI have clearly stated that, look, GPT 4.5 is our most expensive model, and we know this, so don't flame us for this, but we're just going to release the model anyways. And comparing it against Ernie 4.5, saying that this one's 55 cents and this one is 2.2 cents, I mean, I do want to say it is a bit disingenuous, but nonetheless, I will say the point probably does stand in the fact that, these models are significantly cheaper than the other offerings. But will that cheapness be offset by the model's ability to be as smart as them? I don't know. That's going to be something that you have to discuss. And of course, Baidu have spoken about open sourcing the model series within the next few months. So we spoke a lot about different AI model releases, but it wouldn't be complete if we didn't mention Google's new Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is now the king of all kings. So whilst, yes, there's this open source model, that model trying to release this and that, and I mean, it all gets very confusing when you try to keep up. But you have to understand, Google decided to fire another shot into the AI industry. And this one, I think it landed dead center because the benchmarks, I mean, when we take a look at these benchmarks, they're not that impressive, but I think the standout one for me was humanity's last exam. Now, you might be thinking, why is that? Why are we not focusing on the mathematics, the GPQA, the live code bench? I mean, those are all very impressive, but none of them are state of the art. And honestly, I think all of the benchmarks were reaching that point of real saturation. So the reason I'm really excited about this one, which is of course, humanity's last exam, is because this one is designed to push AIs to their limits. It's really, designed to test their knowledge on specialized things. It's really hard. It's really difficult. And Gemini 2.5 Pro actually outperforms O3 Mini, which means by far, I think they're taking the lead. Now, this, AI also performed very well on Simple Bench. And you can see right here that Gemini 2.5 Pro takes the first spot. And this is probably one of the best indicators how good a model is. And the reason I say that is because Simple Bench isn't like other benchmarks. It doesn't test whether a model can understand how to answer a question that is purely based on what it's used to. It tries to answer the question within the question, which means that the model has a deeper level of understanding. And because of that, it's going to be able to answer your questions with a smartness that other models just can't have. And this is why I do believe that a lot of people always enjoyed Claude, because this model is second and third in this benchmark. And all of those three models rank pretty highly, above the other models. And I do believe that understanding common sense reasoning, which is essentially what you could call this test, is a really important part of how humans reason. And it's just something that I do think LLMs kind of get tripped up on, because a lot of the questions that, they're trained on and they answer are very, very basic. It's like, okay, you have this math problem, it solves it in a specific way, it comes to an answer. And a lot of these questions do require you to kind of think about stuff in the physical world and answer the question in a way that, previous LLMs just really struggled with. I mean, I remember the first time this thing came out, a lot of these models like GPT-4 Mini, DeepSeek V3, Grok 2, a lot of them just didn't perform that well. But over time, we're seeing that it's now over 50%, which is a really impressive score. Now, there were other things that really impressed me in the score, such as the fact that it actually had the largest score jump ever on the LMSYS Arena benchmark, with over 40 ELO points gained, which means that this is the model that is good, but not just good by a little bit, but good by quite a lot. So that was one that was super surprising to me, because, Google usually take the top spot for a little bit, but this time they took it for quite some time. Now, of course, there was also the fact that this was number one on the Vision Arena. The Vision Arena is highly underrated, if you ask me. I think this is probably one of the most underrated benchmarks, because most people aren't sat analyzing images all day, but you have to understand that this has many broad implications. If AI can understand images, then that means it can basically see. And what happens when AI can see, we unlock a variety of different use cases. So this is probably going to come about in many different ways that we will see in a few weeks to come. But of course, as it's just being rolled out, it's probably something that we haven't truly understood yet. Now, of course, we had NVIDIA. There was the GTC event, and this video basically summarizes everything you may have missed.
Everything that moves will be autonomous. Physical AI will embody robots of every kind in every industry. 3 computers built by NVIDIA enable a continuous loop of robot AI simulation, training, testing, and real-world experience. Training robots requires huge volumes of data. Internet-scale data provides common sense and reasoning, but robots need action and control data, which is expensive to capture. With blueprints built on NVIDIA Omniverse and Cosmos, developers can generate massive amounts of diverse, synthetic data for training robot policies. First, in Omniverse, developers aggregate real-world sensor or demonstration data according to their different domains, robots, and tasks. Then use Omniverse to condition Cosmos, multiplying the original captures into large volumes of photoreal, diverse data. Developers use Isaac Lab to post-train the robot policies with the augmented dataset, and let the robots learn new skills by cloning behaviors through imitation learning or through trial and error with reinforcement learning AI feedback. Practicing in a lab is different than the real world. New policies need to be field tested. Developers use Omniverse for software and hardware in the loop testing, simulating the policies in a digital twin with real-world environmental dynamics, with domain randomization, physics feedback, and high-fidelity sensor simulation. Real-world operations require multiple robots to work together. Mega, an Omniverse blueprint, lets developers test fleets of post-trained policies at scale. Here, Foxconn tests heterogeneous robots in a virtual NVIDIA Blackwell production facility. As the robot brains execute their missions, they perceive the results of their actions through sensor simulation, then plan their next action. Mega lets developers test many robot policies, enabling the robots to work as a system, whether for spatial reasoning, navigation, mobility, or dexterity. Amazing things are born in simulation.
Now, NVIDIA also introduced Newton.
Today, we're announcing something really, really special. It is a partnership of 3 companies, DeepMind, Disney Research, and NVIDIA, and we call it Newton.
Now, NVIDIA's Newton is a physics engine that helps robots learn and interact with the world in a more realistic way. It's basically a super powerful simulator that lets robots practice in a virtual environment before they actually try it out in real life. Now, this was developed by NVIDIA, Google DeepMind, and Disney Research. And Newton uses, advanced computers to power and mimic real-world physics, quite like, gravity, friction. And this is also robots can actually learn faster and better. So that means robots can train to do complex tasks like picking up objects, navigating spaces without the risks of breaking things, which is, pretty bad because these robots are quite expensive. And Newton is actually open source, which is good because now it means that anyone can use it and anyone can improve it, which is huge because, as you know, open source projects usually get a lot of love and support. Now, NVIDIA's Newton, it improves robotics because this is built on, NVIDIA's GPU accelerated warp framework, which enables faster and more accurate physics modeling, including rigid body dynamics, soft body interactions, and friction mechanics. Now, this helps robots learn complex tasks like manipulation, navigation, and it basically reduces the simulation to reality gap where virtual training fails to translate to real world performance. So I've actually seen a few demos of sim to real going really well recently. So I do believe that, probably within the next few years, you guys are going to see a lot more robotics demos that are going to be super, super incredible. Now, speaking of robotics demos, there were some continued innovations that weren't actually related to this, but were really, really interesting. So one of them was Engine AI. So this was, you can probably hear the robot in the background, but this was a robot that, they used simulation and reinforcement learning to basically make this robot run like an actual human. So I would say that this is probably the most realistic robot that I've ever seen run. And yeah, I've seen a lot of robots run and none of them run like this. So imagine what's going to happen in 10 years. We might even have robots full on sprinting, quite like the Olympic sprinters, and even sprinting probably faster than us at more consistency. So there might be a robot Olympic Games. I know they're doing a half marathon very soon, but it's all completely impressive. And the reason I've even made a video on this company because this company has had, continued innovation after continued innovation, and the company has come out and they've really, really moved very, very quickly. So the fact that this video right here, even me, someone who covers this stuff, okay, I was wondering, is this CGI? Is this CGI? I mean, the robot looks so human. It's moving so quickly. It's 1x speed. And the crazy thing about this is that, if you've ever paid attention to robotics and you've seen the demos, what you'll usually see is robots in 5x speed because they move so slow. So to see a robot go from that to moving 1x speed as quick as a human, if not quicker, in just maybe 1 year, it's kind of mind-blowing. And, your brain has a really hard time of wrapping, that around yourself. But of course, they released the behind the scenes and you can see it is actually super realistic. So honestly, cannot wait for this company's next update because they are killing it in terms of the realism. And I feel like we are kind of already living in a cyberpunk world. Now, also, we did have the Unitree G1. They also released an update where, you can see that this robot can simply get up just out of nowhere. It can kick flip up and stand up. And I mean, guys, this is just it's still blowing my mind. And I'm trying to be professional in my commentary, but I think it's quite hard to maintain that level of professionalism when I'm seeing a robot that, only a year ago was moving in a way that was, pretty laughable and completely robotic. And now it's moving in a way that is quite scary, and many can't even believe that it is real. So this is something that I think we probably should start getting used to, because I think once these robots are trained on even more data, there's a lot more reinforcement learning. And you can see that person just tried to kick a robot over and it managed to have incredible stability. I would argue if someone kicked me like that, I'd probably be face planting on the floor. And I would argue I'm a very active person. So this is something that, reinforcement learning enables the robots to do. And it's super, super incredible. Now, here's something I do want to say. A lot of people, I've seen this, a lot of tweets have been like, okay, the robots can dance, they can fight, they can do kung fu, but are they actually going to have any real world use cases? Well, I've got something for that too. Well, take a look at this, guys, because Boston Dynamics, they've actually released a video where they showcase the Atlas robot actually operating cameras inside of a film studio. This thing is absolutely bonkers. There's no other word to describe it. Like when I saw this, I was like, okay, we're clearly going to have humanoid robots doing a bunch of different things. Now, film companies, they probably have the millions of dollars to, do this because they have millions of dollars of film budgets. But is the indie filmmaker going to be hiring a Boston Dynamics robot to be filming the car? I don't know. I honestly didn't think this would happen so early on. And in this short video, they talk about the fact that, they use these tool robots. They use them in, different ways. But Boston Dynamics Atlas is just able to balance. It's able to hold the camera in different ways, and it's able to hold it for hours in ways that humans never could. I mean, the robot just flexes on everyone by doing a backflip there and just manages to balance itself. So crazy, crazy stuff. You need to actually listen to this.
Right inside a new use case, you need large amounts of training data. And sometimes that training data doesn't exist or is difficult to get hold of. And then you need to generate it synthetically.
Atlas can lift heavy objects in the order of 20 kilograms, hold it in an awkward position, maintain its balance, bring it somewhere else.
Atlas will fill a gap of repeatable shots and long repeatable shots. The other robots we use, obviously they're very heavy and very big, or they have to work on tracks. Atlas, I think, will be able to go into a lot of different locations.
I've really been enjoying working with Spot and Atlas. I think it's been really delightful being able to see how quickly they are part of a set and they're part of a team and they enhance what we do.
It's extremely important to have this space to be able to bring engineering and creativity together.
And so what do you think about that? Well, Elon Musk is talking about, producing 500, I think it's 5,000. I left off a zero there. So yeah, he's talking about producing 5,000 robots per year, which is pretty crazy.
So this year, we hopefully will be able to make about 5,000 Optimus robots. We're technically, so this year, we hopefully will be able to make about 5,000 Optimus robots. We're technically, we're aiming for enough parts to make 10,000, maybe 12,000. But since it's a totally new product with totally new, like everything is totally new, I'll say like we're succeeding if we get to half of the 10,000. Now, but even 5,000 robots, that's the size of a Roman legion, FYI, which is like a little scary thought, like a whole legion of robots. I'd be like, whoa. Okay, but I think we'll literally build a legion, at least one legion of robots this year, and then probably 10 legions next year. And I don't know, it's kind of a cool unit, units of legion. So probably 50,000-ish next year, and then it's probably ready I'm hopefully ready for Optimus to be used outside of Tesla controlled environment, or maybe around the middle of next year, second half of next year sometime. So that's, I think, yeah, it sounds about right. Probably second half of next year is when they'll be available. And then we will offer Optimus robots first to Tesla employees. So you guys get the priority. So the new Optimus 22 degree of freedom hand and forearm is now in production.
Now, of course, if you thought, Elon Musk producing 5,000 robots a year was crazy, well, Brett Adcock actually talks about the robot demand. And this was something that truly surprised me, because he talks about the fact that, like, if they had 100,000 robots today, they could actually, deliver those to companies because the demand is there. Like companies are asking them for these robots, which means, guys, the economy is going to change in a really big way because I didn't think that the demand would be there just yet. But Brett Adcock is basically saying that, look, the demand is here. We are behind on schedule. Not really behind, but we want to, get these robots as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So we have like two tracks. We have a workforce track, which is like, and then we have the home track. Like what most people don't get is like the workforce is the big business. Like it's half of GDP. We can charge meaningfully more per robot than the house. And it's also easier. The things that the robot does is just like the same things almost on a repeat. The home is like the Wild West. It's like extremely hard. We have a huge safety area of like not falling on like any human or hurting people. There's a semantic and safety of like not knocking over the candle and burning the house down. There's like, the home is just like vastly harder. Like maybe in self-driving, it's like driving on the highway is like workforce for us, and driving into the city is like the home. It's just like unbelievably difficult. Between our two first commercial customers, which are very large businesses, we have demand. Like if we had 100,000 robots today that all worked, they would take 100,000 robots today. And so, and then we have like 50 customers that I could sign by the weekend that are all Fortune 100 companies that we've like literally visited. We know them. We just like, we can't, I've, done a bunch of meetings today at lunch, and everybody's like, well, what do you think about helping out here in healthcare? All sound great. Like we're just like bombarded with the amount of demand here. You're thinking about like the workforce, you have like a certain number of supply of humans. It's literally going down. Demographically, the baby boomers are retiring. So you have less humans in the workforce. There's labor pains everywhere. And like there's a lot of job shortages. Like we can, so anyway, we see like just unbounded demand. I think we could ship 1 million robots to this month if we like had them all working and they're ready to go.
And so that was something that I was just like, wow, like that demand is crazy. So, I mean, I probably need to invest in some of those robotics companies. Now, in terms of other things that were really cool, Adobe introduced insane levels of agents. They introduced 10 new AI agents, 10 purpose-built AI agents with the Adobe Experience Platform Orchestrator. Now, they introduced these AI capabilities at the Adobe Summit 2025. And I do want to say thanks to Adobe because they actually did invite me out there, and it was an amazing experience to actually see all of the AI technology in person. And this suite of AI agents designed to revolutionize marketing workflows and customer experiences are honestly top notch. Like I've been doing some serious research into, research papers and what companies are doing, what people are really using. And I want to say that Adobe are definitely ahead of the curve. So of course, if you're a business owner, you should definitely check out what Adobe are doing because it's probably going to become mainstream probably like a year and a half from now. But the things they're working on, like the workflow agents, like the content production agents, the audiences, the journey agents, it's just truly mind-blowing to see how far ahead they are. And it basically just enables, businesses to build, manage, coordinate AI agents from both Adobe and third-party systems. And it's pretty crazy about how they've managed to demo this because I didn't think the agents were that good. Like I've seen a lot of agents that were gimmicky, but this was one that was really impressive in terms of actually doing stuff that organizations actually need. Now in terms of other stuff for AI was actually able to detect a form of cancer. A new game-changing AI, ECG MLP, identifies endometrial cancer with 99.26 accuracy. It uses microscopic tissue images and outperforms humans and other automated methods. And it also works across colorectal, breast, and oral cancers with 97% accuracy. And I can't wait for, AI to be used in healthcare so we can really speed up the detection of certain issues and of course the treatment and diagnostics. Now, of course, there was also some information from Sam Altman on that future. And he talks about basically the fact that, look, this thing is going to outperform us and I don't think we should try and fight that.
I think we're just early in figuring out how humans and AI should work together. Like the AI is going to be a better diagnostician than the human doctor. And that's probably not what you want to fight. But there will be a lot of other things that the human does much better, or at least that the people, the patients, want a person to be doing.
Now, I do apologize for cutting in and cutting off the clip there, but we do have to take a look at the biggest benchmark that exists. The AGI benchmark is here, and now we can see where AI really is. Now, AGI benchmarks are different because they test the system's ability to reason on the fly. So the full message that they said is that, while AGI 1 was good, this one has more novelty, less redundancy, deeper levels of concept recombination. There's a lot more focusing on probing abilities that are still missing in frontier reasoning systems like on-the-fly symbol interpretation, multi-step compositional reasoning, and deeper context-dependent rules. So this one is fully human-calibrated, and they tested these tasks with 400 people in live sessions, and they only kept tasks that could be reliably solved by multiple people. So, the average that was scored by the average person was 60%, and a panel of 10 people achieved 10%. So this is something that they thoroughly did test. So this is a really good benchmark. So I would say that, it's going to be really interesting to see where other models do test. And Google's new model hasn't been tested on this benchmark just yet. But overall, I think what this will do, like even if this benchmark gets solved, I don't think it means that we have AGI. I think it actually means that, we have models that now actually do have a level of reasoning that is, going in the right direction. Now, OpenAI didn't hesitate to update models themselves. They also produced a model update for advanced voice mode.
Hi, my name is Manuka, and I'm a researcher on the post-trading team. The team has been working on some exciting updates for advanced voice mode. So the model we're shipping today has better personality and will interrupt you much less. So the model has, more engaging, natural tone that's more direct and concise. And then because it interrupts you less, you'll be able to have more time to gather your thoughts and, not feel like you have to fill in all the gaps and silences all the time. So I'm going to demo the model right now. Hey, ChatGPT, what's up? Are you there?
Hey, I'm here. What's up?
Hey, so I would love your advice on how to break awkward silences. So imagine I'm at this dinner party, we're all sitting around the table, we're about to eat, but no one is saying anything. And it's really awkward, So what should I say in that moment to break the silence?
Yeah, that can be a bit uncomfortable. A good way to break the silence is to ask a light, open-ended question. Something like, has anyone discovered a new hobby lately? Or what's the best thing you've eaten recently? People often enjoy sharing positive experiences.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just don't want to ask generic questions like, how's the weather,
Totally. Specific questions are usually more engaging. You could ask about recent trips, upcoming plans, or even something fun like favorite movies or shows. Tailor it to the group and the vibe of the evening.
That makes sense. So I actually have a dinner party coming up this weekend and would love your advice on what dish I should make. I'm really bad at cooking, so I don't want to put much effort in, but I still want the dish to look fancy and impressive. So what should I make?
No worries. A super easy yet impressive dish is a caprese salad. It's basically fresh mozzarella, tomatoes, basil, a drizzle of olive oil, and balsamic glaze. It looks beautiful, tastes amazing, and there's minimal cooking involved.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. I think I'll make that. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
You're welcome. Have fun at your dinner party. Talk to you later.
Now, another thing that was a big theme this week is that AI models are getting commoditized, basically meaning that, there's probably going to be too many of them. And I think you guys did see that at the start of the video where I spoke about all of these multiple AI models. Now, this was something that Mark Zuckerberg also echoed in a recent interview.
One of my core beliefs on AI is that I don't think that there's going to be like one single AI that everyone wants to use. I think that there's going to be more diversity and interestingness of the content. This is sort of a different belief that I have than that I think every other major company in the space has, right? It's like OpenAI is building ChatGPT and Google is building their thing. And we're building Meta AI too, and a lot of people use it. It's like, okay, there's 700 million people and growing quickly who use Meta AI. But my basic view is that there are going to be a lot of different things. It's not just going to be Meta AI. Like, I think every small business is going to want to have their own AI agent that can help out with customer support and sales for people who use, who want to interact with them. So that's hundreds of millions of agents. I think a lot of creators are going to want agents, almost as sort of like a piece of performance art, but a way to also engage with your community. But if you craft an experience through some kind of creator AI, then that could end up being like a pretty compelling thing that's maybe not quite as cool as talking to you directly, but better than just sending a message to your inbox and getting nothing. And then I think that there's just going to be a whole lot of interesting content. And I actually think in the future, there are going to be all these like one-time use AI experiences where people just kind of, just like you put all this time into making, whether it's a podcast or a reel, that might be an experience that a lot of people have for, maybe they spend a few minutes with it. But I would guess that in a few years, this will be like another content type. Just like video and photos, like people just create AIs that people use as content that are fun.
Now, we'll use this time to plug my AI community. I'm actually doing a challenge where I'm actually showing to be using AI to get to 10K a month in passive income. I know it sounds like a bold claim, but considering the experience that I have with AI, I've seen that these new AI tools are just not being utilized enough. So I'm basically walking everyone through my path to generating an extra 5 to 10K a month. And I'm basically giving all the details in that community. Now, of course, even the other day, I released a video on how you can actually start generating $100 a day with the new ChatGPT image generation service, because they just released that and people are really not taking advantage of that stuff. So if you're interested in joining us along for that journey and being a part of that community, don't forget to check out the link in the description. It's going to be right there.